Okay, I'm Leanne. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how I do research with undergrads rather than what I do. Sadly, my students could not be here today because they're off doing other amazing things, or I'd love to have had them. I study food decision making and teach psychology. So, let's do this. Why I do this. The peer-to-peer sort of mentoring model that I use has been pretty successful. It started with Bree and John. Bree is currently a PhD student in neuroscience at Louisiana State. John has his dream job and a family. Then they mentored these two, Kaylee and Harmony. Kaylee is a research assistant at UW School of Medicine, and Harmony is in graduate school at Northwestern University in Chicago in a counseling program. Then she and Kaylee together mentored Allie. Here we have them working together on a poster, and then Allie has her independent poster. She's now a PhD student at University of Maryland, Baltimore County in applied developmental psychology. Then Allie was a great mentor and mentored my current students, who are, the pause is nice at the end in between, Natalia and Kaylin. Kaylin was recently accepted at Marquette for a PhD. Natalia will be applying next year, and they're mentoring Taylor. Okay? So I'm extremely passionate about undergraduate research, but it can be really work intensive. So I've come up with this sort of model that I use where students help each other to make it slightly more efficient on my end so I can work with more students than perhaps I'd be able to. Psychology has a pretty strong tradition of undergraduate research. It's really common across psychology departments throughout the world. But it's really expected for our students to have undergraduate research experiences when they apply for graduate school, whether it's for a research program or a clinical program. So it's really, really important for them to have these. It's not like just extra. We're all obviously passionate about this, but one of the key aspects of the benefits of undergraduate research is access to mentorship. Because I'm just one person, if my students mentor each other, it increases that access to mentorship and then can be more helpful in inspiring them to go to graduate school and to stick it out when it gets tough, which I had phone conversations with two of them recently about how tough it is right now. I do all of this in the context of my food decision-making lab. This is actually not really the research paradigm that I used in graduate school, but it's something that I came up with based on my experience in psychology and what I'm interested in and what works with the resources I have available here. I'm interested in why people drink sugary beverages, even though we know that we shouldn't. I'm glad there's not a bunch out on the table. I feel bad bringing that up when they're all. But my students generate their own hypotheses about why we drink these based on attitudes that people have or their idea about whether or not they should be watching what they eat, if they care about things like social desirability or how they come off to others. And those are areas that students generate their hypotheses. In order to test these hypotheses, we collect data from undergraduate research participants in our pool. This is also common in psychology departments, but it's another area of scaffolding. Students can volunteer to participate while they're in a class. Later, they might serve as a research assistant and then use that pool. And then when they're research assistants, they're getting job skills like scheduling and communicating and using this online program. I really see that the most important step in what I do is recruiting motivated students. So it's important to have some background work and sort of a culture of research. I'm very fortunate to have like-minded colleagues that speak about the importance of undergraduate research in psychology in their courses, in lunch seminars, etc. But this brings up important questions to me about access, equity, inclusion. Because my lab works on an independent study model, this is not course-based research. It means it's not available to everyone. And unfortunately, we have fewer spots in psychology for research assistants than we have graduating seniors, which brings up a lot of questions and concerns for me. Even though I try to keep an eye towards this, it's sort of fundamentally, there's an access problem. Also, because I use the scaffolding and mentoring, I like to have a decent amount of commitment, 2 years if it's possible for the students. That means that many times students are coming to me when they first transferred for UW-T, so I'm less selective in the background knowledge that I think is necessary for students to work with me, emphasizing research methods rather than conceptual knowledge. That means in their first year, we have to do a lot of reading. Now, when I first had Bree and John, that meant I had to do all this work to cultivate all this reading, and it took a lot of my time. Now, my current research assistants cultivate all the reading for the new students, and they take care of that for me, and I don't have to do it. So it's much more efficient than it was originally. Also, we have weekly lab meetings, and in those lab meetings, we commonly have like a journal club model with other research that's come out on our topic. At first, I had to set all the expectations and model it and really work on that, but now I don't have to do that anymore because my current students teach my new students how to do it, and so it makes it much more efficient. They have a lot of practice in communicating evidence from science. So this means their first year basically looks like this in my model. They come in, they're reading the literature as a first year that the older students have cultivated for them. They learn how to facilitate journal clubs. And then the students that are advanced, that are in their second year, have their own project. So the new students learn how to run participants in the project of the older students. Running participants is an important skill in psychology, it's just part of it. Then as they contribute, they get to be second author on the poster with the advanced students, and we like to present those at conferences. In the past, I presented at a very undergraduate-friendly conference that has, science from across psychology, because a lot of my students enter areas of psychology outside of food research. Because I have a limited amount of time with them, I like to work with them in the summer where they generate their own hypotheses, so they have an idea for their own study, and we could start it immediately at the beginning of their second year with me, and then I update the IRB if necessary so that we can run that study as soon as the second year starts, because we have a limited amount of time with our students. Then the second year, now they're mentoring new students, cultivating the reading, running the journal club, and teaching the new students how to collect data from participants. This is all information then that they can add to their CV, they can write about in their statement of purpose for graduate school or their cover letter on job applications, and I can talk about in their letter of recommendation. They're collecting data, and as soon as we get to the sample size that we need, we start analyzing it. Now, hopefully, by that point, they've had more courses in research methods and statistics, but that tends to be a pretty onerous process. Then they compose the poster, are helping the newer student in the lab, and present at a conference. I don't really even have to get them ready for conferences anymore and talk about all that. They just talk to each other, and it's wonderful. Because they're contributing to my research, I take it extremely seriously that I contribute ongoing to their professional development. We talk about it every week in lab club, or in lab meeting, before we do journal club, to determine their long-term goals, come up with what they need on applications, get ready for the GREs, et cetera. And I feel like I've been pretty successful in that department. So to conclude, undergraduate research experience serves as a pathway to success after UW-T, but faculty have a lot to do, so we can sort of increase the efficiency in some ways with things like peer-to-peer mentoring and scaffolding.
Okay, next up we have Lisa Hoffman and Mary